stationery you buy doesn't matter nearly so much as whether or not it was installed correctly.
2.
At Gettle, we do things the right way, not the easy way.
3.
My
Hey now.
installers are perfectionists because they know they have to text me 7 different photos of the installation before they can leave the job. You don't know what to look for, but I do. You're going to like the people I send to your house because everyone who works for Gettle is Sadie certified. Sadie is my weekly carrier, and Sadie is never wrong. Bottom line, you're going to be happy you called Gettle. Happy, happy, happy. That's the truth. I promise you, and not a bit of it.
Hey now. How's everybody? Can you hear me? Mike is on this side. I better get my bumper music ready. So I have a friend on the phone. You won't be able to hear him unless I turn the mic off.
You're part of a growing business. You need to hire, but not just any candidates. You need the right candidates. You need powerful tools to find the right fit for the job. And you need tools that are easy to use.
Lima Charlie, loud and clear. Lickin' chicken.
Algorithm uses the specific details from your job listing to position your job post with more relevant candidates to find it. The right candidates.
You gonna be ready?
Yeah, how long do we have?
About a minute.
Okay.
On her way to work one morning, down the path alongside the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half-frozen snake on side the on her way to work.
Conditions and quality standards apply.
You can spend the holidays with family and friends.
All right.
Leave them alone with the person you're trying to hide.
I have Al Wilson, the snake.
From American
Oh, Lima Charlie means loud and clear.
Pound 250 from your mobile phone. Say keyword.
Or lickin' chicken.
You'll speak to a caring individual who will guide you through the process. Stop hiding. Let this be the
We'll be playing Al Wilson, the snake from 1972.
250 on your cell and say I'm ready. That's pound 250 and say I'm ready.
Sometimes the kindest word someone can tell you is no. All it's
That's police, Lincoln Charles. I know both phonetic alphabets, by the way. Is this thing jumping and getting framing? Is it smooth or is it jumpy and framing?
On her way to work one morning, down the path alongside the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor half.
KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian sits in here live until midnight. And speaking of live, I just want to welcome the entire state of Hawaii who survived a 50-kiloton hoax perpetrated earlier this morning. Not a hoax, though, a false alarm. So we go live to the islands to a personal friend of mine known to me, and we'll just call him Phil. How are you tonight, Phil? You're not, the dead are not envying, pardon me, the living are not envying the dead, and you're not supping on the flesh of your neighbors? So, take me through this. You have a cellular phone, you have a mobile car phone, right? And so what time of morning was this? Oh, so you can't disable the alerts. Oh, yeah. See, on your civilian phone you can, and also I can't. I don't want to. All I can tell the audience is that you work for a certain federal government of a certain unnamed nation. Yeah. So, so was it a audio alert? Was it like an Amber Alert when it goes and all that? What did it sound like? Do an impression.
Just had our test last month. The first audio sirens went off on the island and everything.
Yeah. So you're walking your car. Did other people stop mid stride and grab the? What they do? I mean, did you just ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii? Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Did you just fill your pants at that point? And I should say, yeah, you're not a normal civilian in walking out of a Safeway. You're a man, an international man of mystery and action and combat. Death and danger is your bread. Death is your danger, and danger is your butter. No, I'm sorry. Death is your bread, and danger is your butter. Or as Woody Allen said, 'cause I'm stealing this bit from him, death and danger are your various breads and your various butters. Yeah. So you know something about time of flight, and you're sitting there mentally. You're doing your calculate. You're saying 21 minutes time of flight. What was your choice? Get home and tell the wife, or just sit there and drink the milk? So it's been a good year. You guys, you just had like your 1 year anniversary. What anniversary did you just have? So you're saying, well, it's been fun. Yeah. Did you tell him that you loved him after all this time? The chasm between you two. Did this close it? And you told you okay, good for you. He's an a-hole. Yeah. So did you get time to call your mom and dad? Yeah. What was okay? So amongst your neighbors, what was I don't know the most strident thing you saw? Have you seen the video of the people putting their daughter in the storm drain? Oh yeah, and you're on the north side, right? Oh, you'd be screwed. Yeah, the people on the north side have a terrain feature between them and Pearl Harbor. You know, and that actually makes it. People don't know this. We're not supposed to say this in the media, but you can survive a nuclear bomb. But we're just not supposed to say that. All right. Well, can you hang on a second? And so anyway, our secret guest is Phil. That is what we'll call him, and he is in Hawaii. He experienced this. He believed for 20 minutes that he was going to be nothing but a greasy spot, probably down there on the Kalanianiole Highway that links the Ala Moana Mall with the Aina Haina. So hang on. I'll put you on hold. We'll be back right after this. With, quote, Phil, close quote, that and more coming up on the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here till midnight at KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chapé with the news.
A single-engine plane has crashed.
I don't know if you could hear that. Could you hear that at all, unless you're listening? But what are your, do you have any questions for Phil? Phil in Hawaii. That segment sucked peanuts out of you-know-what. Oh, okay. Well, I can reveal to you, the YouTube audience, that Phil is a prior U.S. Army Ranger, and he was my driver and gunner and bodyguard in Iraq. So if I went into a negotiation, I took like a translator and him. And we were in my vehicle, just the three of us. So he was gunner, driver. And then after we got back from Iraq, I sent him to OCS. So he is now an officer and a really, really good guy. So that's who dat. Yeah, that's the issue with doing that. That's why, I never take calls anyway. But, that's the issue, that when my mic is on, it mutes the speaker. So
a small laundry detergent
if I turn the mic off, you can hear that.
not only causes vomiting, gag.
Am I in queue? Alrighty.
Traffic from your helpful SoCal Honda Traffic Center crash flaring in Montebello on the 60.
That's right. The 60 East of Garfield Avenue. Good news there. They finally got that crash over to the right shoulder. Traffic remains a little slow back to Finlay Avenue. In downtown LA, 110 North is slow from Luxury Boulevard up to 101.
My feet been dragging across the ground, and I feel when the lights on summer, and the light of love will be burning bright. Feet they're dragging across the ground, it's all from the south. And it's sure been a cold, cold winter.
All right, we're going with the Rolling Stones' Winter from Goat's Head Soup.
SoCal weather from KFI. Overnight lows, a few clouds, dipping down to the 50s to near 60s. Some sunshine mixed with clouds tomorrow. Wind gusts up to 25 miles an hour for the valleys. And then the highs ranging from the 60s to near 70 at the beaches, mid 70s to lower 80s for the inland metro areas. And then we could see highs upper 70s to mid 80s for the valleys of the IE. And then sunny for MLK Day Monday.
Yeah, I know about the Franklin Army reformation. I'm a little confused by it because in California, you can use the SIG arm cuff, and you can effectively have a SBR. I'm talking to one guy, by the way. Sorry about that. I normally don't do that, but I know, cars for kids. Really? Where in Santa Clarita? By Sierra Highway, you said? Yeah, I'm on 11 acres that are basically 2 acres by like 5.5. Yeah. So I have a berm. I'm far enough away from a main highway, and I'm firing into a berm. And so my only issue is that I don't want any ricochets hitting a solar panel like a mile away, but I don't. But I don't shoot towards houses, and the LA police gear in Santa Clarita off the 126. I don't like that place. I think they make cheap ripoffs of really good TAD gear and even 511 designs. I'm not a fan of Blackhawk, but at least they make original stuff. But LA police gear just makes kind of cheap toss-offs of it, and I don't go there. I go to Tactical Pro Shop in Burbank, okay?
You're probably used to being the most informed person in the room. We're not suggesting that self-satisfied smugness isn't its own reward, but wouldn't it be nice if there was some cash in it for you? Well, now there is. Kind of. Monday through Friday from 5:20 a.m. to 6:20 p.m. Listen every hour. Then just text in the keyword to 200 and you could win $1,000 just for staying informed.
Yeah, if you can't figure out, it's an F-bomb.
Your next chance is coming up Monday at 5:20 with Jennifer Jones-Lee and the Wake Up Call on KFI.
I have not heard that rejoin.
It's a whole
That's what they do now. Okay. KFI. AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here live until midnight, and there is no nuclear winter happening because of the not nuclear war that broke out in the county and island of Oahu earlier today. Our guest is Phil, which is his actual real name. It's not a code name, and he is a resident of of America's 50th state, lovely 50th state, and. Well, so now it took about 38 minutes for them to issue basically the oops, the whoopsie alert. And that said, I had it here somewhere, but now it said Hawaii. Oh, actually, your congressperson, Tulsi Gabbard, who I met at a child trafficking thing. Hawaii, this is a false alarm. There was no incoming missile to Hawaii. I have confirmed with officials there was no incoming missile. A lot of people, but if you're not following her, and she's a congressperson. She can't actually bust into your phone. What the state came back with 38 minutes later was there is no missile threat or danger to the state of Hawaii. Repeat, false alarm. So now you're back home. You've only got 9 minutes to live. So time runs out. It's now past 20 minutes, and you're still you're not in Valhalla or whatever. And it's 21 minutes, and you're still sitting there as an atheist. By the way, did your atheism survive this? Okay, and because I was praying it would. So now everyone's looking at each other, right? And are you saying, hey, this has got to be wrong? But what did you take charge?
So we got to give props to the U.S. military because I think it was Yusuf Packer Paycom KMS. They were the ones that said, hey, troll for state, because the state released this information, not the federal government.
And so, because initially in the tweet storm, because Twitter, of course, went crazy, everyone was blaming Pacific Command for this. And they were the first ones to come out and say, we're not detecting any missile. We don't speak Hawaiian. These quaint people are running around in their bare feet. We don't understand what's going on. And So what happened when that alert 38 minutes later, everyone's phone is ringing again, you're outside, what happened then? And like everyone got the alert at the same time, reached in their pocket, pull it out, all read it at the same time. So but no, that's the thing is there were never any, if there were alerts, we were never told as civilians. Like like I was saying before we had you on, in the NATO exercise, Able Archer, that famously made the Russians lift their defense posture and we raised ours. We had no clue. I was busy banging stuff and drinking Schmidt in college. There was nothing like that, like this. I'm getting an alert like this. So it's the islands. I mean, I was born and raised there. You live there. You know how things work. Is it going to be forgotten by tomorrow? Yeah. And did what? By the way, what were the police doing? Did you see any police activity? Were fire engines? I'm curious what they did. I mean, if I was a cop on the job and I got that alert, I would be running home to say goodbye to my family. Code 3. Oh, the actual over the highway signs. Really? That's insane. My dad worked for the FAA in Diamond Head for 29 years, and he had a key to Diamond Head. Diamond Head is a catacomb of shelters and pillboxes. The Hawaii EAS, yeah, and that was our emergency plan. My dad, my mom, would always talk about that and say, well, if anything happened, my dad would just jingle the key. He had the actual key to the double gate at Diamond Head. But you have nothing. You just have your house, and a pet, and a dog, don't even have a dog, just a wife. Did you look inward in your soul and realize that you've been running down the wrong path all this time?
Towards the mountain, looking at Oahu's on the other side, and I thought, if I do see a big bright light, that's probably going to be it.
All right. Yeah, I think I don't know. You tell me. I think my reaction would be that I'd be frustrated because I'm so helpless. There's no helmet. There's no body armor for this. Yeah. So all right. Well, it's 8:40 there in the islands. The sun is down, and are you guys going to go to a We're Not Dead party? Really? The Class 6 store was emptied out. By God, makes you proud to be an American. All right. Well, if I were you, I'd make T-shirts tomorrow that say "The Grateful Undead, 2018." Yeah. All right. Good. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, I got a text from him. He's still alive. Good. He's listening. All right. Well, Phil, if that is your real name, say hi to your wife and go to a party and get all hooched up. All right, you two. There he goes. Phil, who survived a 50-kiloton hoax that was played on the people of Hawaii by the state of Hawaii earlier today. And so you can follow me on Twitter at Dark Secret Place and use hashtag Dark Secret Place. But I mean, put yourself in that position here in Los Angeles, right? If you've been here for the earthquakes or the riots, you know that, rumors fly really fast. But can you imagine getting that alert in Los Angeles? I'll tell you what I would do if I were home or if I was here at work. What I would do if I had time of flight here on the west coast of the U.S. If I had approximately 38 minutes, 38 to 40 minutes, because that would be the time of flight from North Korea to Los Angeles, what would I be doing? And you can tell me what you think you might be doing. And we'll get to that here in just a second. It is The Dark Secret Place. Brian sits in here until midnight, live on KFI M640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chapé with the news.
An Orange County Sheriff's bomb squad was called on the scene at the Bellaterra.
Okay. What happened? What the hell happened? What happened? All right. We're back. Yeah, I gave a talk about this a couple weeks ago at Dave and Buster's, and if a airburst hit downtown LA and you're in the valley, you're going to be shielded, by the Hollywood Hills. Pardon me. Excuse me. Yeah. So if you are in downtown LA and it's an airburst, then I really don't know what to tell you, except you're going to get the worst of it. You're going to get the blast and the radiation and then the fire effect. So I don't know how accurate their missiles are. Not quite sure. The deal is, if the missile is an airburst, that will minimize fallout. The fallout would come from fire. If the missile's a ground burst, then you got fallout. And overwhelmingly, the wind from downtown LA, the wind blows northeast, which takes it, east of Edwards Air Force Base towards Nevada. Your first thing to do is to stay indoors for about 24 hours, because you want to minimize your exposure to fallout. I used to live west of the Bangor Missile Base, and oh shit! How come I'm forgetting the missiles? Not the Polaris missiles, but anyway, I lived west of the West Coast Submarine Base. Trident missiles, thank you. And the deal is, that is a no shit absolute target. The reason being, the reason that the base was built in Washington State was to guarantee, instead of Hawaii, for instance, is that a nuclear submarine has to be able to bring their missiles to bear, even if they're tied up on the side of a pier, right? So the Trident missiles didn't have the range that the Navy wanted. And if they had built the Trident base in Hawaii, they never would have had the funding for a longer range missile. So they approved the base to be built in Bangor, Washington, in Hood Canal, which was east of where I lived. And so that way the submarines could launch from the base. So it would be an absolute yes. It would be a primary target for the Soviet Union. So yeah, we had all kinds of drills at PA in Port Angeles, where I lived. But yeah, that's sort of the that is kind of the deal that people don't talk about much. But if there is a nuclear detonation in Los Angeles, and you're not under the fallout, if there is fallout, if there is a ground burst, you stay indoors for 24 hours and let the weather take care of it. And then when you go outside, you need to either hose it off or get it out of the way, get it somewhere. But because your next order of business is getting out of the area.
From Quicken Loans. Choosing the right mortgage lender involves much more than just a rate. Quicken Loans has earned 11 J.D. Power Awards for client satisfaction. And we invented Rocket Mortgage, a simpler, hassle-free way to get a mortgage completely online. No one else has anything like it. So choose Quicken Loans, America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
How long do we have? Okay.
At Walgreens, that's a question you won't have to ask. As a preferred
Stop, the train is running down to the station where you live.
$0 copays apply to Tier 1 generics.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Too short to even care of the world. Life's too short.
Make up our everyday.
Some are good.
All right, I'm ready. We're doing Young the Giant cough syrup. I know, it's too late now. The Daz Band with You Dropped a Bomb on Me.
If you see something suspicious,
You dropped a bomb on me, baby.
Coming up on Sunday morning, the NFL project underway to house its partners and brands is set to be 3 top-ranked businesses. Does that mean there will be rights as well? Tune in and see how this $2.6 billion project is going to shape the future of Inglewood.
Sunday morning with Elizabeth Espinosa. Tomorrow morning on KFI AM 640.
more stimulating talk.
Life's too short.
KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian sits in here live until midnight. And you can follow along on the live stream. Go to unsheepyourself.com. Unsheep, like you're a sheep. You don't want to be a sheep. So unsheepyourself.com. And you can live stream it that way. So in general, a couple weeks ago, I did a live show in, I want to say, Orange or Arcadia. I forgot. But I was discussing some of the little tips to survive a nuclear blast. And as I said here before the break, if I'm at home, the prevailing winds from, and let's assume downtown LA or San Pedro is a target, right? So if you're in the valley, then you are generally shielded by a terrain feature, and that's the Beverly Hills. And depending on the prevailing wind, which generally is northeast, it's blowing towards, say, La Cañada Flint Ridge from downtown LA, and then up into the Antelope Valley, northeast towards Nevada. So if you're in the San Fernando Valley, the prevailing wind tends to, if we don't have a Santa Ana, the wind is coming off the oceans, coming from from west to east. If we have a Santa Ana, well, that's a bad scene because that's almost a reverse wind pattern. But in general, you stay indoors for 24 hours. If it's an air burst, there won't be as much fallout as if it's a ground burst. If it's a ground burst, then all this material, flaming, burning material plus solid material, goes up in the air. That's a problem. And if you're not under the fallout, then you're okay, but you still need to stay indoors for 24 hours. So rule number 1. You should have you should have lentils and a way to make fire without electricity. And because you might be surprised, but if it's a single warhead, the grid would probably still be up. The further north you get, 20, 30, 40 miles, like Santa Clarita, don't be, the EMP effect is kind of overstated. So you might still have electricity. If you don't, then you're not going to have water pressure, are you? So you need to have water standing by that's not irradiated. and a way to heat it and, cook some food. Your next order of business, to be perfectly honest, thing one, survive it. If you're not at home, you need to stay indoors. And you need to brief your family and say, wherever you are, stay indoors for 24 hours. At the 24-hour mark, you need to have a rendezvous point that prearranged with your family, because your next job is to get out of LA, because the aftermath of that nuke is not going to be pretty. But this is sort of the thing you're not supposed to say in the media that the government hasn't really said, is that, yes, you can survive a nuclear blast. You can. If you're along the foothills, you're going to get blast effect from a downtown burst, but it won't be, because the North Koreans don't make big enough bombs. So you're not going to get that 1950s footage of your house, imploding in a vacuum or anything like that. There's still going to be severe blast damage, wind damage, and things like that. But it will effectively be a gigantic explosion. The radiation effects are what you're now trying to mitigate. Your house from Arcadia east, you may have no damage whatsoever. There will be fires all around downtown LA, and they will be spreading. There will be no one to put them out. Beverly Hills is going to take a gigantic blast, and but don't worry, Valley, it will block you from that blast effect. The fire is the next big deal. And as I say, if it is a ground burst, then you're going to get a lot of fallout in the heat rising up into the atmosphere. If it's an air burst, then hopefully the wind takes care of it. The blast effect is the main thing down there on the ground. So we all agree it's really, really horrible. Most people think that you just can't survive it, and that's the end of it. But if you get a warning like this, and it's real, then look for something underground with, if you can find it, reinforced concrete, concrete with rebar. If you're in a parking garage and there's a lower level, get down there and await the all clear. If nothing happens, then great, right? If something does happen, at least you're going to be shielded from the blast effect. But can you imagine? Here's here's the other issue here, the emotional thing of this. And like I said, my friend Phil, he was in a elite unit of the U.S. Army. I went to war with him in 2004 and 2005. He's beyond getting phased at brushes with death, and so I'm interested to hear how he reacted. I think he's I think like anybody, from a Delta Force guy down to a 10-year-old kid, you're justifiably going to be scared as hell, because you've just been given the notice that there's a clock ticking on your life. And if, like everyone in Hawaii, as he was saying, knows that it's a 21-minute time of flight from North Korea to Hawaii, so that clock is ticking. You've got 21 minutes. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because you're sitting there and you're seeing all these videos and photos of people in Hawaii, texting their loved ones, and then people getting incoming texts saying, if you're awake, answer the phone, WTF, what's going on? Missile in Hawaii, honey, take shelter, I love you. If you're sleeping, wake up and call us immediately. It's funny because there was a movie made, Anthony Edwards, Goose from Top Gun. He was in a movie called Miracle Mile in the late 80s. And the premise of the movie is it's 2 a.m. He's kind of a loser here in Hollywood, and he's at a payphone. The phone rings. He picks up the phone, and it's a misdial. It's some guy at NORAD in Colorado thinking he was calling his father. And Anthony Edwards answers the phone. The guy says, just listen to me. They did it. It's crazy. They did it. The missiles are in the air. We only have 45 minutes to live. Dad, I love you so much. And then in the background, someone yells, get off that phone. And there's gunshots. And then the phone hangs up. So Anthony Edwards now is sitting there at 2 a.m. on Miracle Mile outside of a diner and realizing he's got 45 minutes to live to get out of L.A. And it's an interesting movie. It would be the movie I would want to stream tonight. That'd be the movie I would want to rent in Hawaii. But just put yourself in that position. They thought it was real. People in Honolulu thought it was real. And I know that the neighborhood that I grew up in Aina Haina on Puamamani Street, very, very religious people. Hawaiians are very religious people. And I can't imagine what they went through. today. And like I say, putting your kids in storm drains, you know, you went from a beautiful Saturday morning to putting your kids in storm drains. And, you know, I mean, the last time a weekend was interrupted like this was December 7th, 1941. But this was not a real attack. But just imagine that. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to say that the state of Hawaii gave them PTSD today with that mistake. It wasn't, by the way, if you don't know, it was not an announced drill. It was a mistaken signal. So the governor spoke. I'll play a little bit of that, but then we have to get to the nuclear posture review is changing a little bit, and a pretty amazing leak out of the Pentagon today about Russian capabilities. That and more coming up. Hour number 2 of The Dark Secret Place right after this. A whole bunch of stuff. Brian Suits here till midnight on KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
We'll never try to tell you where Southern California
Miracle Mile.
That would be fake news. We're just
Miracle Mile.
Live from the 24-hour KFI newsroom. The search is ongoing for 5 people still missing after the mudslides in Santa Barbara County.
We are still actively searching for people, and while
Glenn Beck and I don't like each other.
likely that we will find anyone alive.
We have known each other since high school, since youth and government in high school. Glenn did his music radio shtick for a long time. Glenn spent most of the 80s and 90s on a drunken bender doing music drug radio. And then he had a sudden revelation and he married a Mormon. And so he became a Mormon and became conservative. And everything he does is a shtick. It's an act. So not likely I'm ever going to be on Glenn Beck's radio station, his radio show or anything. Yep. 1982, Washington State Youth and Government. Senator Suits and Senator Beck. If you want him to freak out, raise questions about how his mother died. The Coast Guard suspected it was a murder-suicide out salmon fishing, but that'll freak him out. A good friend of mine, Todd Herman, up at AM 770 in Seattle, KTTH, The Truth, he just filled in for Limbaugh like 2 weeks ago. So part of the deal is to fill in for Limbaugh, you have to constantly talk about how awesome Limbaugh is and how great he is, and just like Hannity. I'm not really good at sucking that particular Johnson. You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, my various halts in my career to go fight wars like Bosnia and then Iraq, I was doing a really good show in Seattle when 9/11 happened. And so I went to OCS and then Iraq. And so I was out of the mix for about 2 years, 2 significant years. And I don't look backwards. I don't go through life walking backwards. But I look back on that and I realize that had I been on the air, you know, for the in 2003, 2004, and had the first half of 2005, I probably would have been nationally syndicated by now. But I did what I did because I'm a volunteer, and to be honest with you, you know, war sucks and being wounded sucked. But I wouldn't trade my experiences in Bosnia or Iraq for anything, because Bosnia, more than anything, turned my mind into what it was. I came back from Bosnia, and I didn't want to go back into music radio. And I accidentally got into talk radio at Cairo in Seattle because my friend Kennedy had just started her show on the FM Cairo. And the boss, I on day 2, I did the whole show with her. And the boss on Cairo, AM 710, offered me her 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. show in Seattle. So I did that's where I started, at Cairo in Seattle. I was either going to go to law school or, you know, whatever. So that is that deal. Because I heard one time a mutual friend, a radio friend, between Beck and myself, suggested me for Beck's show and said, "Hey, here's a guy. He's a really good guy. He's a radio guy, but he's also a combat veteran." And Beck shut him down and said, "No, don't don't ask me about that guy."
Somewhat sunny. Got your
Well, Premier, filling in for Buck Sexton, I filled in for Andy Dean, for 3 years, and then Megan McCain for 2 years. Megan had this really annoying habit of calling in sick every Friday, so I pretty much had my Fridays blocked out. And I thought I was going to get that show, but they went another way, and they hired Buck Sexton, and Buck and I know each other. And so Premier Radio... they're the ones who syndicate that show from Sherman Oaks. And so it was just really simple. That audience for the Buck Sexton show, which used to be America Now, they know me. They've known me for more than 5 years. So they wanted to get, they went a different way. They went with Buck. Buck's a good guy. And I have no problem saying, hey, thanks to Buck Sexton, he does a great show. Because, Buck is a national security guy. And he really doesn't, there's really no one that can fill in for him except me. So that's how that works. Who, Buck Sexton is the butt of many jokes? Who's the butt of jokes on Kevin and Bean? Buck? Yeah, Mike Baker's great.
Dark secret place with Brian Suits.
And I'll use a PC here on them. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here live until midnight. Talking about the aftermath of a whole bunch of people in Hawaii. Pardon me. For 38 minutes thinking that a nuclear missile was inbound from somewhere. And that's the other thing, is that the original message sent out this morning said, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. It doesn't say North Korean missiles. So from North Korea, it's 21 minutes time of flight. If it was something else, they wouldn't know. But so anyway, for a long time, for more than half an hour, thousands of people in Hawaii thought that it was their final moments. So Governor Ige of the state of Hawaii spoke with CNN a little later, and here's a little bit of that conversation. And if I were him, I would be starting with, please accept my profound apologies. But they're spinning this thing as like an admin mistake.
We did around 13 at about 8:13. We
see when I turned the mic off
that it was a false alarm, and we had initiated communications out to inform the people that it was a false alarm. The 38 minutes was really the elapsed time before we could get a message correcting the error out on the phone platform. We are investigating and going through the procedures. I've directed the agency to suspend all of these tests.
God, I hate that.
We can do a
OAN, that What American Is.
We've already taken action to institute a change in the process so that there will be 2 people involved, so that a single individual will not be able to send an alert out. And we will be undertaking a more comprehensive review of the process and make the changes as necessary.
2-man rule, just like the beginning of war games. The two guys in the missile silo, and the one guy doesn't want to turn his key, and the other guy pulls his gun and says, "Sir, turn your key, sir," and all that. So now there's going to be a 2-man Twitter rule, or 2-man emergency alert rule. So that is the governor of Hawaii explaining this. The explanation that they gave was it was shift change and somebody pressed the wrong button. And you know, the obvious answer there was move the frickin' button. Move the kind button, brah, as we said where I grew up. And I also, I think that the governor was given an explanation that doesn't exactly work right, because I don't believe it's a button. There's not a button that says nuke inbound. I have no doubt that there's pre-formatted messages, because that's how it works. That's how we do it in the military. That's how civil defense does it. That's how the Missile Defense Agency at Vandenberg does it. There's pre-formatted messages, so you're not sitting there going BALLLIST. Oh, damn it! Actually, spell check. Okay, BALLISTIC space MISSILE. Yeah, it's pre-formatted. In this case, it's pretty clearly pre-formatted. Quote, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. So that is the real world, no crap, message. And if they were to announce a drill, which I'm guessing they might be doing pretty soon here now, or unless they want this to just go away, it would start with, this is a drill. Missile alert emergency an announcement system in effect. If you are receiving this, it is a drill. That's what it would do if it was a drill. That's why they sent this real world one, and I just don't believe it's a button. So anyway, we'll learn more. But just like I say, put yourself in that position. We're talking here in California about mimicking the Mexican earthquake early warning system. The Mexicans have a system that can buy you, I guess, about 40 seconds or so. And, think about that. To have 40 seconds heads up that a earthquake is on its way is pretty amazing. And like, for instance, LA Times has a bot. They have a Twitter bot, and they have an automatic pre-formatted message for the LA Times. And if a local earthquake happens, they have a pre-formatted message that says, a earthquake has been detected in blank of a preliminary magnitude of blank. No word on damage or what. It's pre-formatted. No human beings doing that. It just plugs in the data and the location. So in Mexico, they have a early warning system that goes to government, and government goes out to people's phones. And I mean, that happens in a microsecond. And so you get 40 seconds heads up. So, I mean, just imagine you're on the 14 southbound getting on the 5, and you're on that freeway that collapsed at the Northridge earthquake, sending that LA County deputy, who didn't see it in the darkness. He overdrove his headlights and went off that gigantic merge ramp. It was like the tallest merge I'd ever seen in my life. Now it's slightly less tall. But if you had 40 seconds... and you're driving around interchanges between the 10 and the 405, in 40 seconds that you have, you're going to get the hell off of there, and you're going to get to hopefully more solid ground. Or if you're in a building, maybe you're going to get out of the building, or something like that. We don't have that. But can you imagine, anyway, point I'm getting to is, can you imagine a false alarm coming? Can you imagine the chaos that would be? If you get that false alarm, earthquake magnitude 8.1 from San Ysidro coming, or from San Andreas Fault in Ojai, striking downtown LA in 20 seconds or something like that. Can you imagine the chaos that would be? Unless you had your phone muted or something like that. So this is, never mind an earthquake. This is what people in Hawaii got at 8:07 a.m. is missile inbound. This is not a drill. And that would be for a lot of people. I'm guessing the churches are going to be pretty full tomorrow. I know that my street, when I was a kid, at 338 Puamamani Street, Puamamane, Sunday mornings the street was empty. It was the Suits on one side of the street, and it was my friend Derek Godo and his family on the other side of the street, and our other friend Ferris Mohideen, who was down the street. There was 3 families not in church on Sunday morning. So yeah, Hawaii, and we lived in a very blue-collar, multi-race mixed neighborhood. Hawaiians are very religious people, so I'm guessing the churches are going to be packed tomorrow morning. But apparently they're going to be packed with really hungover people. So it ain't a church if you're not hungover, says the atheist. All right, we'll be back right after this. The Russians have a really special drone. Super special, in fact. A doomsday drone, some might say. We'll be back with that right after this on The Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here till midnight. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
Katie Couric has broken her silence on sexual misconduct allegations against her former Today Show.
All right. 129 people. So if you don't know this, me and the guy that we are building out this YouTube TV channel to fund the daily live show and things like that. We're on Patreon. If you go to Patreon, Dark Secret Place, you can help us build the channel. And then we will probably wind up doing Patreon. Wind up doing a is it the Maven? This content will go into the Maven, but it's going to be the Maven's going to wind up really not being much more than that because they don't have a good video platform. They promised that they would. They don't have that. So we got to commit. We're doing something. We have to start with YouTube. So a YouTube channel is really easy to do. And so if you go to Patreon, you can help us build that out. And then what we'll probably wind up doing is like a 9 a.m. morning show. And I'm assuming maybe you'll all be at work, but you'll have your smartphone with you or something. So we'll do like a 9 a.m. live morning show for 45 minutes. And then you can archive that, watch it, all day long. And it'll be a general show like that. So it would be probably every day. And, I know, I'm not trying to compete with with Bill Handel or, anyone else, but I would want stuff out there by 9 a.m. And if not 9 a.m., then by noon. And I want to do a live show that people can interact with. But so far, YouTube likes me because I only have like 4,000 subscribers, but my average view time is over 19 minutes. Actually, let me look at that. So they like me. And so the deal there is then hopefully the show becomes self-sustaining and so then we just grow from there. And I'm not going to be like Jake Paul. I'm not going to be like rolling a golf cart or something. But let me see here at my dashboard. Analytics. Let me find this. Let's see. Revenue, audience. Overview. There we go. That's going to have time. Average view duration, 18 minutes, 22 seconds. As seen there. So YouTube loves that. So it means that the audience that I'm bringing to YouTube is spending more time. And yeah, it is monetized, but not live streams. Live streams are not monetized till they archive. When they archive, then they plug in the ads. But it's a good demo. Some really YouTube likes that, so hopefully we'll start getting money for this channel, so I can start doing projects, take it on the road, and all that. The thing is though, I have talked about guns. Yeah, KFI better be cool with it, But it's I've got a good demo. The advertisers like that. When I log out and then check out my own videos, the ads that I see are like Southwest Airlines, Delta Airlines, Thor, movies and things like that. And so that tells me that their algorithm is correctly seeing that I have a good audience metrics, a good radio. KFI would love my audience. By the way, interesting, huh? I mean, there's a reason that I'm up against music. I'm up against K-Rock. I'm up against Real 92, 98.7. I'm up against these Saturday night music shows that have historically dominated in LA for 20 years. And this is the first time that that KFI is number one on a Saturday night. So KFI doesn't expect does not expect a lot of Saturday top 5 shows. This is the first time that KFI has been number one on a Saturday night in over 20 years. I mean, I know because I used to work the K-Rock night at the Hollywood Palace, and we were number one from. Oh, I don't have a bumper. All right, I'm queued up. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits in here live until midnight. Just a guy in a dark room without a producer, not taking calls, just talking. Nothing to dance to. Nothing, no commercial-free jams, nothing like that. So, nuclear drone. Let's talk about that. The NPR, the Nuclear Posture Review, is a thing that's done every couple of years, but there's significant changes this year because President Trump has indicated that he is committed to budgeting the money that the U.S. nuclear arsenal has been ignored now for 20 years. That means modernizing current weapons and then developing more precise, smaller weapons and things like that. In the NPR, the Nuclear Posture Review, in a draft that somehow fell into the hands of the Huffington Post, there are a couple foreign technology tabs in there for you to check out. And one of them is a direct facsimile or original slide from a Russian document. And in the Russian document, it describes in general terms for probably a political audience. Like this is something you would put up in front of Vladimir Putin, who is not a sailor by trade or training or experience. And it's sort of a generalized slide. And I'm holding it up to the YouTube camera right here. If you want to go to unsheepyourself.com, you can see this as I'm streaming it. And it shows two different classes of Russian submarines for length and scale. And then underneath one of them is a mystery device, and it's really, really long. It is nearly 15 meters. So this would be like a good-sized fishing boat. And it is torpedo shaped. I mean, it's shaped like a torpedo, and on the back are rudders, and there's a propeller. And it is called the I forget the name. I don't want to read it in Russian, but it's called the Status 6. Status, Status, numeral 6. The Status 6. And what it is a nuclear powered. So there's a nuclear power plant. There's a nuclear reactor in the very middle of the torpedo, and it is creating steam, and the steam is turning a turbine, and the turbine is turning a gear, and the gear is turning the propeller, the screw. And it has a guidance system that can either be directly guided by a pilot thousands of miles away, or it can be auto guided. It can be put on a auto course. And then it has a nuclear warhead. So it is a nuclear torpedo with the potential to sail around autonomously for, let's just take a wild stab and say, 5 to 10 years. It's not a huge nuclear power plant, but then again, it's not shoving an aircraft carrier through 200,000 tons of water. Okay, it's a torpedo with a nuclear warhead. Now, why did they develop this, and do we have something like it? I don't know if we ever have anything like it, because I don't know that we see a military value in this. The reason being, a nuclear warhead would be used in a nuclear war. And the purpose of a submarine in a nuclear war is to get 50 feet below the surface, launch its missiles, and then go home and reload. Because what happens after that really is style points. If you survive getting home, you're going to be reloaded. If there's anything to get home to, you know the deal. That submarines would, for the United States and the Soviet Union, submarines are the fallback plan. Submarines are either launching a first strike or a immediate responsive strike, because generally submarines are closer to the enemy than the land-based missiles. And so the submarine-launched ballistic missiles, like the Trident missile, take less time. There's Trident submarines in the Sea of Japan right now. Time of flight from anywhere they are between Japan and Korea and the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, probably about 6 minutes. So that's the purpose of a submarine. So why would you have a unmanned, underwater, nuclear bomb-tipped, nuclear-powered submarine drone? And that's the real question. And one possibility is, and I mean, ask yourself, what would you do with that? If you were king of listener stand, of KFI stand, what would you do with this? Well, this would also be possibly a stealthy, slow drone that you could destroy an enemy port with. Problem is, it could be detected. Unless it is going so slow and it's so acoustically stealthy that you could not hear it. So theoretically, just like a regular submarine that we can't detect, let's say the Russian submarine releases this thing 1,000 miles from Long Beach, and it zigzags and it circles because the Russians are doing it just in case, right? That it would be a first strike weapon. And it would, but what could this reach that would be a target? Well, the obvious thing as a first strike weapon is not the port of Long Beach, but it might be an aircraft carrier at anchor, or an aircraft carrier on patrol in the Sea of Japan, or an aircraft carrier doing a port visit in Japan. But if we are on the brink of war, chances are those carriers would be out at sea. Would it disable the Panama Canal? Sure. Yeah, it sure would. Is the Panama Canal strategic to Russia? Not really, but it's key to us, it's crucial to us. So we're a little confused. Part of our confusion is that we're thinking like Americans, and this doesn't pass the I want it test. We really don't have a role for this. And so it's really hard for Americans to figure out, well, then why did the Russians make this? Why do we know about it? And then, by the way, the cynic's question is, did they really make it, or are they doing something that they have done over the past 90 years when they accidentally release something that they have no intent to make or back up, but they get us spinning around in circles saying they have a nuclear-powered, nuclear warhead, autonomous underwater torpedo drone, when they actually, in reality, have no intent of ever making such a thing. But it's worked in the past where they make up weapons and release artist concepts and drawings, and we believe that they're real weapons. So that's another possibility. All right, more on this. We'll wrap this up here in just a second, and we will get to a local man, a Vietnam hero, getting upgraded from the Navy Cross to the Medal of Honor, and he lives right here in Oxnard. I'll tell you about this chap when we come back here in a little bit. Brian sits in here live until midnight at KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. The Dark Secret Place. Michael Chappé with the news.
As Brian's been saying tonight, an emergency alert has sent people into a panic in Hawaii. The alert was...
Okay. I've got the Asahi tonight. I nurse it. I nurse a really big Asahi for like 3 hours. Yep. I got a haircut so my hats fit. Problem is the guy did the fade too high. So now I have that Hitler haircut where I have a high fade and then a bunch of hair flipping over it. So my daughter said I look like Hitler. So how can I do that? I can't fake a Hitler mustache. Live calls on KFI. Here's the thing. If there was like some big international event or something like that, then maybe live calls. I don't know. Oh, here we go. So you'll note. Yeah, I do. Go to hashtag Dark Secret Place, and I'll take questions. You'll note that the warhead is nuclear, but here at the amidships you have the reactor. And obviously that's Cyrillic, but it says reactor, like it does right there. And then you have your turbine array, your turbine blades, and reduction gear, and all that. And this is it to scale under there. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe live calls, but it's a lot better to take Twitter questions, honestly. And for Q&A stuff, that's kind of what the YouTube channel is going to be. There's going to be what are called super chats, where you actually subscribe to get in, you pay to get in. Because it's, I know from watching YouTube Live that watching, like Periscope Live, there's a guy that I really like, Rick Wilson, a political consultant, at the Rick Wilson on Twitter. And he'll do Periscope, and I want to hear a monologue, but he sits there taking every fucking question there is. And it gets kind of frustrating. And I think that the easiest thing is to go on live, give you the data, 5 to 10 minutes, and then, get out.
And sunny for MLK Day Monday, just a couple of degrees cooler, highs 60s and 70s. Partly cloudy, and a little bit cooler still on Tuesday, and the forecast is calling for rain on Friday. Right now, 73 in Irvine, 61 in Newport Beach, 66 in Hollywood, 67 degrees in London. We leave local AFI's 24-hour newsroom. I'm Michael Schmidt.
As a marketer, you want to reach everyone, adults, teens, millennials. But it's not like these groups all hang out in the same place, right? Actually, wrong. They're all right here listening to radio commercials just like this one. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact,
I'm sending someone a link to the bumper that I used last hour, which was Al Wilson, the Snake, from 1972. How much time do we have?
But it doesn't do that. You know it, I know it, we both know it. The reason it's important to remove the humidity is because if you don't, it puts a heavy load on your air conditioner. And it takes a lot more energy for your air conditioner to remove that moisture than it did for your water heater to put there. I want to replace that bathroom noisemaker with a new state-of-the-art bathroom fan. This sucker is so powerful, it will lift the small dog 6 inches off the ground every time you turn it on. And it's so quiet that not even the dog can hear it. My dog's
Oh, I hate long ads.
your home is going to be more comfortable, use less electricity, and your bathroom is going to smell and feel great. Happy, happy, happy. You're going to be glad you called Kevin. GOE-PTL. They keep you cool, but it's hard to sell.
She said, "Play the sky and colors bursting."
All right, I'm good. Hector, the engineer, was really sick last week, so I'm glad he got rid of that. I still brought my own, thingy here, and I'm wiping everything down.
And a lot of times we bring two different perspectives.
Period, Shannon. You're more Chardonnay and I'm more Merlot.
You're not Merlot.
Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KFI.
An iHeart radio station.
Floating fast over traffic lights, bearing down on blackened sky, and colors burst as I close my eyes. Ooh, she said,
Lay me down in golden dandelions. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. It is the Dark Secret Place. Brian Suits here until midnight. And yeah, so the analysis of why the Russians, and if you don't know the background story on this, the Nuclear Posture Review draft was leaked. Huffington Post reprinted it. Washington Post had the story. Part of the Nuclear Posture Review is answering a interesting piece of information that was accidentally leaked by the Russians last year, where they had on Russia Today on RT. They were doing one of their glowing stories about the Russian military, and they were showing a command meeting of Putin and his chief of staff and all this. And one of the guys over his shoulder had a bunch of 3-ring binders. And in one of the 3-ring binders, there was this graphic, and it looked like a PowerPoint slide. And it was sort of accidentally sticking out. And there were tantalizing details in it. And so now the slide has been found, and this is where it apparently shows the Russian desire or completion of a nuclear-powered nuclear warhead underwater torpedo drone. And so anyway, like I say, they have a track record of doing this sort of thing in the past, where they've put up basically dummy Potemkin villages, if you know what that means. There was a time in the 20s and 30s when useful idiots from Time magazine and the New York Times would visit the Soviet Union, and they would be taken to these movie set, collective farms, where everybody was singing a patriotic song and just, bumper crops were coming up and all that. And the Russians, in the early 70s, they constructed a fake, apparent ground-based radar system outside of Moscow with fake launchers. And we looked at it from satellites and et cetera, and instead of saying it's a fakey fake faker, we said, well, who would do that if it wasn't real? And then they had their revolution, parade, their November Revolution military parade, and the strategic rocket forces went by. Standard rockets were there, the Intercontinentals, the medium ranges, and all that. And then the air defense forces paraded by. That's what the Russians do. They do it by branch. The Navy marches by, the Air Force marches by, and there's a flyover. The Army comes by, tanks, and helicopters. And then the strategic rocket forces, which is a separate branch, nuclear missiles. And then air defense, which was a separate branch at the time. And there was a new missile in the air defense. And it was not an anti-aircraft missile. It had too many stages. And it looked like it went into space. So if it was in the air defense section of the parade, and they've just built a new radar outside of Moscow, they must have an anti-ballistic missile system. Well, they did not. But they made us believe for about 10 years that that missile was real, and it was connected to the empty warehouse made up to look like a ground-based radar outside of the Russians are really good at this. So anyway, that's a potential theory. It's not how you plan, though. You have to plan for what if they really do have a underwater nuclear-powered nuclear warhead drone? Why did they build it? What mission would such a thing have? And also, there's another possibility. Maybe it's an unmanned deterrent drone. Maybe this is their so-called dead hand system. They've always been rumored to have a so-called dead hand switch. Like on a train, if the engineer has a heart attack, the throttle goes back to zero. That's called a dead hand. But with nuclear war, it's the opposite. It's like Dr. Strangelove and the Doomsday Bomb, that if the Russian Central Committee is wiped out, the Doomsday Bomb automatically goes off. And that's what this would be. That if the Russians, if there's a first strike or whatever, then they have a fleet of nuclear-powered drone torpedoes that can take weeks to cross the Pacific Ocean at 5 knots, and they can strike San Francisco or your house or whatever. So anyway, it's a thing. We're talking about it. Hashtag Dark Secret Place. If you do want to ask me questions and you're on the Tweeter machine, you can go hashtag Dark Secret Place, and I'll go and check them out and answer your questions. Oxnard, California. The hero right down the street. Does anybody know John Canley in Oxnard? With backing from Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, or President Mattis as I call him, paperwork to upgrade the Navy Cross awarded to then Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant John Canley to Medal of Honor for his actions in the Battle of Way City in 1968 were forwarded to President Donald Trump on Friday. Quote, this is what Mattis said, quote, after giving careful consideration to the nomination, I agree that then Gunnery Sergeant Canley's actions merit the award of the Medal of Honor. This is what Mattis said in a letter to Representative Julia Brownlee, who's his chief sponsor from up there in Ventura County. Mattis noted that Congress would first have to waive the 5-year limit for recommending the Medal of Honor, but once that happened, I will provide my endorsement to the President. In a statement Friday, Congresswoman Brownlee said the House waived the time limit on December 21st. Senate took similar action on Thursday. All that is needed now is Trump's signature to give the nation's highest award for valor to the 80-year-old Mr. Canley, former Gunnery Sergeant John Canley of Oxnard. He retired as as a command sergeant major and is reportedly battling cancer. In the brutal days during the battle to retake Way City in 1968 at the middle of the Tet Offensive, Canley's, quote, valorous actions and unwavering dedication to his fellow service members is the reason so many of the men who support his nomination are alive today to testify on his behalf. His incredible gallantry and selflessness is an inspiration to us all, said Congresswoman Brownlee. He published a book last year about his experiences. Mark Bowden, the guy who wrote, Black Hawk Down and Killing Pablo and all those. Last year, in his book called Way 1968, A Turning Point, of the American war in Vietnam. He mentions Canley more than 30 times in the brutal house-to-house fighting that was Way City. John Canley stood out. And if you recall Full Metal Jacket, I'm pretty sure most of you at some point have seen Full Metal Jacket, you'll recall there's two halves to that movie. First half is Parris Island, South Carolina, basic training, I mean boot camp with R. Lee Ermey and, you know, the whole thing. Second half is right before the Tet Offensive and the Tet Offensive in Way City. And Way City was French-built, French architecture, and it was extraordinarily brutal city fighting. And the Marines that went to Way City were in the jungle for a year. And then they went to a city fight, which is a completely different kind of combat. But the U.S. Marines hit the ground running, and in a really extraordinary display of flexibility and bravery, were able to dislodge the numerically superior North Vietnamese army enemy that was outnumbering them like 3 and 4 to 1. Plus, they had the defensive advantage. So the Marines, with really no prior training specific to city fighting, learned along the way, on the quick. And John Canley, I'll read you some of his exploits when we come back. But approved for a Medal of Honor, a local boy, 80-year-old John Canley up there in Oxnard. We'll be back right after this. Hashtag Dark Secret Place with your questions and comments. And more stuff. It is the Dark Secret Place live until midnight. KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk. Michael Chapay with the news. I should mention, by the way, that Michael Chapay is working tonight. He buried his wife today. His wife died about a week ago. She worked for LA County Fire in administration and maintenance. And so the LA County Fire Department, you know, gave her the funeral, but he buried his wife today, and his wife is his best friend and love of his life, and so you wouldn't know it. I mean, the guy is being such a pro, and you know, I talked to him, you know, when I talked to him after his wife died, and he basically said, you know, I got to work. I got to get my mind off this. So, so anyway, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, that day. What a nightmare. You know, besides burying a child, you know, the guy, you know, his wife's funeral was earlier today. And, you know, and he's a really good guy. He is a really, really, really good guy. And, you know, the only thing I can say to him is I don't know what to say. I've got, you know, if you want to go out and grab a drink or you want a dozen eggs or catch a movie or whatever, you know, tell me if anything helps. But otherwise, I don't have, you know, comforting words to tell the guy. And so I don't sit there and tell him how sorry I am for him. You know, that's really all about me. When you do that, I just want you to know, you know, how sad I am for you. Well, you know, who gives a shit? You know, so.
Beaches mid-70s to mid-80s inland. Traffic from your helpful SoCal Honda Traffic Center slow through Hollywood.
No, I don't know how he does it. I do not know. I'm a mess whenever one of our dogs dies. You know, so I had, for a couple of years in my radio contracts, I had 2 guaranteed days off. I had, if Jimmy Stewart dies during this contract, I will get the next day off. And it will not be a sick day. And then Ronald Reagan. But I was in Iraq when Ronald Reagan died. And we got the news early in the morning before we went out on patrol. And I told my guys, I said, hey, we just got word that Ronald Reagan died. And so let's go out there and do some fucking damage. Let's kill one for the Gipper. But because I met Jimmy Stewart. Dig if you will this picture. Me and my buddy Andy, who got me in radio, used to be the program director of K-Rock. I moved to LA after the Gulf War and lived with him and his wife for a couple weeks till I found my own place in North Hollywood. And on Christmas Eve, 1991, we went down to Gelson's in Encino to buy eggnog and shit. And Jimmy Stewart was there. He was at a party locally. He was wearing a suit and tie. And he ran down to Gelson's to get some stuff. And I'm standing in line behind Jimmy Stewart, and he was fishing for change, and I got some change out. And I said, General, I've got 37 cents. And he looked at me, and I said, my honor. So that was my Jimmy Stewart interaction on Christmas Eve, 1991. Jimmy Stewart flew combat missions in Vietnam, by the way. Not just World War II, but Vietnam. As a general, as a brigadier general. All right, let me go to hashtag Dark Secret Place. And see if anyone has asked me a question. No. You losers. Yep, B-52s. He flew a couple B-52 missions out of Guam. But but yeah. Michael Chappé lost his wife last week. She was in an accident back in October. And she looked like she was recovering, and she took a turn for the worse there in December, and then died, last week. And he remember, you weren't hearing him for about 3 weeks or 2 weeks, but he was there with her every night. And then she died, and he came home to an empty house. You have 8 or 10. And he he had to come back to work. He didn't want to be sitting there at home. Oh, do you have a bumper? I got a pop-up on this shit. KFI AM 640, more stimulating talk. The Dark Secret Place, Brian sits in here one last time. And so, yeah, local youngster. 80-year-old John Canley, who served with the Alpha Company of 1-1 Marines. If you're wondering, who was this dude, this multi-week badass? He was in the storied 1-1 Marines, part of the 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment of the 1st Marine Division, though the Marine Corps doesn't really talk to themselves as divisions anymore. But in the big picture, he served several tours in Vietnam from 1965 to 1970. This is what someone who served with him as a private first class said. He said, quote, "The sheer cumulative effect of Gunny Canley's actions and deeds over this continued period rank with the acts of America's greatest heroes from the Revolutionary War to this present day. This man is the epitome of a Marine warrior." Others agreed. Quote, Pat Fraley, another Marine who served under him, said, quote, "I spent 9 months at the St. Albans Hospital, required numerous surgeries, and am disabled, but I would have died if Canley had not risked his life for mine." In previous fighting at the Con Tien Marine Base near the DMZ, near the North Vietnam-South Vietnam border, Canley not only carried Marines to safety, but also exposed himself to enemy fire. He was always leading and attacking the enemy and always standing up and encouraging us. His Navy Cross cites specifically actions from January 31st to February 6, 1968, during which time he took command of his company when the company commander was wounded, in part saying, quote, "On 31 January, when his company came under heavy fire near the city of Hue, Gunnery Sergeant Canley rushed across the fire-swept terrain and carried several wounded Marines to safety. He assumed command and immediately reorganized his scattered Marines, moving from one group to another to advise and encourage his men. Although sustaining shrapnel wounds during this period, he nonetheless established a base of fire, which subsequently allowed the company to break through the enemy resistance. Then on February 4th, 1968, despite fierce enemy resistance, he managed to get into the top floor of a building held by the enemy. He then dropped a large satchel charge into the position, personally accounting for numerous enemy killed and forcing the others to vacate the building. I don't even like looking at those things, much less running around with one ready to light off. So, because, and here's the deal, the Medal of Honor doesn't require a single act this one day, this one time. Like, you know, Audie Murphy was decorated for a whole bunch of things. And his Medal of Honor culminated in the action where he got on the back of a burning tank and began machine gunning down advancing German infantry, just mowing them down like bratwurst. And his Medal of Honor citation actually reads over a couple days. So this is not unusual. I mean, for God's sake, there was a guy in World War II. I mean, literally, his name's Snuffy Smith. His nickname was Snuffy Smith. He was a B-17 crewman. The plane was hit. Pilot ordered everybody out. The aircraft was still flying, though. Everyone but this guy parachuted out. He peed on the fire and put the fire out, saving the B-17 and the pilot, and he got a Medal of Honor. So that literally was, you know, doing one thing one time. The key criteria for the Medal of Honor, and people don't quite get this, because I've heard people, I'm not naming names, I've heard people say, well, yeah, the Medal of Honor has to be awarded posthumously. No, it does not. You know, if you're alive to be there at the ceremony, that's style points. You got it. But the key criteria of the Medal of Honor is you cannot have been ordered to do the thing you did. In other words, you went above and beyond the call of duty. That's the point of the Medal of Honor, is that you're not penalized for keeping your head down, because that's normal. What's not normal is jumping up and charging a German machine gun nest and taking them out one after another with grenades. That's not normal. That's extraordinary. That's above and beyond the call of duty. Now, no one would ever say, you over there, Private Yamashita, you are going to go up that hill full of Germans. You're going to start throwing grenades until you're shot in both lungs, and then we'll see how things work out. That's not an order. So anyway, he exemplified what a Marine combat NCO should do. And the most remarkable thing is the guy survived to tell the tale, so now he's 80 years old. Young Bob Canley of Oxnard, California, and they are fast-tracking his conversion of the Navy Cross to Medal of Honor. So I hope everybody up there in Ventura is very proud of this guy. And undoubtedly many folks are going to come out and be there at the ceremony, which should be, I guess, later on this year. It's just, I have the weird experience of having known someone before he won a Medal of Honor, when he had two arms, and then now knowing him as Medal of Honor winner. So it's that's what's odd. Leroy Petrie, by the way. So we will join you back here on YouTube tomorrow for Super Hyper Local Sunday, and I'm going to play a lot of Keith Jackson in memoriams, because Keith Jackson, of course, is a graduate of the Washington State University and the great broadcast school there, which I never set foot in. But evidently there's a really good broadcast school at Wazoo. Keith Jackson went to it. It's named after Edward R. Murrow, because Edward R. Murrow went to Washington State University. And so the great Keith Jackson passed earlier today, a great Cougar, the best college football play-by-play guy ever, the voice of college football. And I'll play a couple great highlights from him tomorrow for Super Hyper Local Sunday. So that is Dark Secret Place for tonight. If you want to email me, best way to do that is darksecretplace@protonmail.com. Just like I said it, darksecretplace@protonmail.com. Protonmail.com. Neutron? No. Protonmail.com. Or you can do Brian Suits at iHeartMedia.com. Brian Suits, BRYAN. SUITS at iHeartMedia.com. I'm always on the damn Twitter machine. That's why I have 3 million Twitter impressions per month amongst my Twitter followers. So if you're not on the Twitter, get the Twitter app at Dark Secret Place. And then the shows and various videos for KFR are put up on my YouTube channel. And that is unsheepyourself.com. Unsheepyourself.com. Because, and you know what? More than ever, it's super important because now in 2018, we live in a state in open rebellion of the state of California because we're now a sanctuary state. So it's all there, sanctuary stuff, guns, the whole thing. Camping tips, zombie killing tips, all of it at unsheepyourself.com. Talk to you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Thanks to Hector and Michael Chappé, and we will see you back here on KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
KFI doesn't do fake news, so we never try to
California's
only 24-hour.
You can put your weed in there, dude. All right, so I'll see you back here tomorrow night. And I'll be doing a live show probably in Orange, not Irvine, but Orange, in maybe 2 weeks. So we'll see how that works out. So anyway, keep Michael Chappé in your thoughts. And if you want to send flowers, feel free to do that. Here to KFI at 3400 West Olive, Burbank, California, 91505. And we will talk to you tomorrow.